What if I told you the single reason you're not as happy as you could be is because you're living for someone else? Every day you're chasing approval, likes on social media, praise from your boss, or validation from friends and family. But what if the key to true happiness is having the courage to be disliked? Welcome to a life-changing journey inspired by The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitaka Koga. This isn't just another self-help book, it's a roadmap to freedom, rooted in the revolutionary ideas of psychologist Alfred Adler. Today, we're diving deep into why seeking approval is a dead end, how your goals shape your emotions, and how real-life stories show us the power of living authentically. By the end of this video, you'll have practical tools to break free from the approval trap and live a life that's truly yours. So grab a notebook, hit that subscribe button, and let's get started. Why does this matter? Because most of us are wired to care about what others think. It's human nature, right? From childhood, we're taught to seek praise, good grades, gold stars, or a pat on the back. But here's the harsh truth. Living for others' approval is like running on a treadmill. You're exhausted, but you're going nowhere. This video isn't about quick fixes or fluffy positivity. It's about a mindset shift that can transform your relationships, your self-esteem, and your entire life. Stick with me because we're about to unpack ideas that will challenge everything you've been taught about happiness. Let's start with a question. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to, not because it would impress someone else? If you're hesitating, you're not alone. Kishimi and Koga argue that the root of all our problems, stress, anxiety, even depression, comes from caring too much about what others think. They call it the approval trap, and it's a cycle that keeps us miserable. Adlerian psychology, the foundation of The Courage to be Disliked, says our thoughts, emotions, and actions are all connected, working toward a goal we've chosen. Unlike Freud, who focused on past trauma, Adler believed we're not prisoners of our past. Instead, we create our present through the goals we set. For example, if you're anxious about a presentation, Adler would say you're not anxious because of the presentation itself. You're choosing anxiety to avoid the risk of failure. Mind-blowing, right? This idea hit me hard when I first read it. I used to think my anxiety was just who I was, but Adler's perspective made me realize I was using anxiety as an excuse to avoid risks. Maybe you've done this too, skipped an opportunity because you were too nervous, or didn't speak up because you feared judgment. Kishimi and Koga say these emotions aren't random. They're tools we use to protect ourselves from disapproval. Here's where it gets real. Seeking approval is a losing game. Why? Because you can't control what others think. No matter how hard you try, someone will always dislike you. I learned this the hard way in my early 20s. I was obsessed with being the perfect friend, always saying yes, always available, always trying to please everyone. But one day, a close friend criticized me for not being authentic. It stung, but it was a wake-up call. I was so busy trying to be liked that I wasn't being myself. Kishimi and Koga explained that seeking approval turns life into a competition. If your coworker gets a promotion, you feel like a failure. If your friend's Instagram post gets more likes, you feel inferior. This zero-sum mindset makes you resent others' success, which poisons your relationships. I've seen this in workplaces, families, even online communities. People tearing each other down because they're chasing the same validation. Here's my analysis. Seeking approval is like chasing a mirage. The closer you think you are, the further it moves. Why? Because approval depends on others' moods, biases, and expectations, things you can't control. I once spent weeks perfecting a project for a boss, only to get lukewarm feedback because they were having a bad day. That's when I realized living for others' praise is a recipe for burnout.
Instead of chasing approval, what if we focused on our own values? Kishimi and Koga say freedom comes from accepting that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. This doesn't mean being selfish or rude. It means prioritizing your own goals over others' opinions. It's about saying, this is who I am, and I'm okay with it. Now that we've exposed the approval trap, let's talk about the solution: the courage to be disliked. This is the heart of Kishimi and Koga's message, and it's a game changer. They say, freedom is being disliked by others. At first, I thought this sounded harsh. Why would I want to be disliked? But here's what they mean. When you stop caring about others' judgments, you're free to live authentically. What does courage look like? Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about acting despite fear. For Kishimi and Koga, it's about choosing your own path, even if it means ruffling feathers. Think about it. Every great innovator, artist, or leader faced criticism. Take someone like Steve Jobs. He was polarizing. Some loved him, others thought he was arrogant. But he didn't let disapproval stop him from pursuing his vision. That's the courage to be disliked in action. Let me share a story about Sarah, a friend of mine who embodies this principle. Sarah was a people pleaser, always saying yes to her demanding boss and overbearing family. She was miserable, constantly stressed about letting someone down. One day, she read The Courage to be Disliked and decided to set boundaries. She started saying no to extra work and prioritized her hobbies, painting and hiking. Her boss was annoyed and her family called her selfish. But over time, something incredible happened. By living for herself, Sarah became more confident and joyful. Her relationships improved because she was no longer resentful. She was authentic. Today, she runs an art studio and inspires others to embrace their true selves. Sarah's story taught me that the courage to be disliked doesn't just free you, it transforms your relationships. When you stop seeking approval, you stop resenting others for not giving it. You also stop seeing life as a competition. Kishimi and Koga say, happy people don't view others as rivals, they celebrate their success. This shift creates genuine connections because you're not using people to feel good about yourself.
I've applied this in my own life. I used to feel jealous when a colleague got praise for a project I worked on too, but after embracing this mindset, I started focusing on my own contributions. Instead of competing, I collaborated. The result? Stronger teamwork and less stress. It's liberating to know that someone else's success doesn't diminish mine. One of the most fascinating ideas in The Courage to be Disliked is that your goals shape your reality. Adver believed that everything we think, feel, or do is directed toward a goal, even if we're not aware of it. Kishimi and Koga take this further, arguing that we choose our emotions to achieve these goals. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine you're terrified of public speaking. You might think, if I could just stop being nervous, I'd nail this presentation. But Kishimi and Koga would say your nervousness isn't random, it's a choice. Subconsciously, you're creating fear to avoid the risk of embarrassment. Your real goal isn't to give a great speech, it's to avoid failing. This blew my mind because it means we're not victims of our emotions, we're the architects. Let me tell you about Mike, a guy I met at a career workshop. Mike was desperate for a new job, but kept bombing interviews because of anxiety. He'd sweat, stutter, and sometimes cancel last minute. After learning about Adler's ideas, he realized his anxiety wasn't about the interview, it was about avoiding rejection. His true goal was to stay safe, not to get the job. So he shifted his goal. Instead of aiming to impress the interviewer, he focused on sharing his skills authentically. He practiced visualizing himself as confident, not perfect. The result? He landed a job he loves. By changing his goal, he changed his emotions and his outcome. This concept is empowering because it puts you in the driver's seat. If you're unhappy, it's not because of your past or circumstances, it's because of the goals you've chosen. For years, I blamed my stress on external factors, a tough job, a busy schedule, or lack of support. But when I started examining my goals, I realized I was choosing stress to avoid taking risks, like pursuing a passion project. Once I shifted my goal to create something meaningful, my stress decreased and I felt more alive.
This doesn't mean ignoring real challenges. If you're facing financial hardship or health issues, those are real. But how you respond, your mindset, your emotions, is within your control. Kishimi and Koga's insight is that you can choose goals that align with happiness, not fear. One of the biggest myths about happiness is that your past determines your future. Kishimi and Koga challenge this head-on, arguing that trauma or negative experiences don't control you. The meaning you give them does. They write, "No experience is in itself a cause of our success or failure. We do not suffer from the shock of our experiences, but instead we make out of them whatever suits our purposes." This is a radical idea. It means that two people can go through the same hardship, like a difficult childhood, and come out with completely different lives, depending on the goals they choose. Consider Emma, a woman I interviewed for a podcast. Emma grew up in a chaotic household with neglectful parents. For years, she used her past as an excuse for her struggles with relationships and self-esteem. But after therapy inspired by Adlerian principles, she realized she was choosing to let her past define her. Her goal was to avoid vulnerability, so she pushed people away. When she shifted her goal to building meaningful connections, she started opening up. Today, she's a counselor, helping others overcome their pasts. Emma's story shows that you can rewrite your narrative by choosing new goals. This idea resonates deeply with me. I used to carry resentment from a high school teacher who told me I'd never amount to anything. For years, that memory fueled self-doubt. But after reading The Courage to be Disliked, I realized I was giving that moment power by choosing to believe it. When I reframed it as a challenge to prove him wrong, my confidence grew. The past only controls you if you let it. This perspective is liberating but challenging. It requires taking responsibility for your life, which can feel daunting, but it's also empowering. Your past doesn't have to define you. You can choose happiness today, no matter what you've been through.
Kishimi and Koga argue that the key to happiness is shifting your focus from competition to contribution. Unhappy people see life as a zero-sum game where someone else's success means their failure. Happy people, on the other hand, find joy in helping others without expecting anything in return. The authors say, if one really has a feeling of contribution, one will no longer have any need for recognition from others. This means that true happiness comes from knowing you're useful to someone, not from their praise. It's a subtle but powerful shift. Let me share Alex's story. Alex was a corporate lawyer, successful but miserable. He was always comparing himself to his peers, chasing promotions and status. Burned out, he started volunteering at a local food bank. At first, he did it to look good, but soon he realized the real reward was seeing the gratitude in people's eyes. He didn't need applause or a LinkedIn post about it. He felt fulfilled just by helping. Today, Alex balances his career with regular volunteering, and he's happier than ever. His story shows that contribution doesn't have to be grand. Small acts of kindness can transform your life. This idea has changed how I approach my work. I used to measure success by metrics, views, followers, income. But after applying this principle, I started focusing on how my content helps people. The feedback I get, comments like, "This video changed my perspective," is more rewarding than any number. Contribution creates a sense of community, which is the opposite of the isolation that comes from competition. This doesn't mean you abandon ambition. It means redefining success as making a difference, not outshining others. When you focus on contribution, you stop worrying about who's better and start appreciating your unique impact. Kishimi and Koga emphasize that happiness is found in the present moment. You don't need to achieve something massive to be happy. You can find joy right now by recognizing your value to others.
The authors argue that chasing future goals at the expense of the present is a trap. Instead, find meaning in the journey. For example, if you're working toward a degree, don't wait until graduation to feel proud. Celebrate the effort you're putting in today. Maria, a single mom I know, used to feel like her life was on hold until her kids were grown. She was always stressed, waiting for someday when things would be perfect. After reading The Courage to be Disliked, she started finding joy in small moments, reading to her kids, cooking together, or just laughing. By focusing on the present, she realized she was already living a meaningful life. Today, she's more patient and fulfilled, even when life gets tough. This idea has been a game changer for me. I used to think happiness was a destination. Once I hit a certain milestone, I'd be set. But Kishimi and Koga taught me that happiness is a choice you make every day. I started practicing gratitude, noticing small wins like a good conversation or a sunny day. It's not about ignoring goals, it's about finding joy in the process. This mindset also helps you face life's uncertainty. If you knew your life would end tomorrow, would you feel fulfilled? If not, it's time to focus on the now. That's where true happiness lives. So, what's the big lesson from The Courage to be Disliked? It's simple but profound. Live for yourself, not for others. Happiness isn't about being liked by everyone, it's about having the courage to be yourself, even if it means being disliked. This means letting go of the need for approval, choosing goals that align with your values, and finding joy in contributing to others without expecting anything in return.
Practical steps to start today. Reflect on your goals. Ask yourself, what am I really chasing? If it's approval, shift to a goal of contribution or personal growth. Practice saying no. Set boundaries to protect your time and energy. It's okay if people don't like it. They'll respect your authenticity. Celebrate others' success. Instead of feeling threatened, cheer for others. It frees you from competition and builds stronger relationships. Live in the moment. Find one thing today that makes you feel useful or joyful, even if it's small. That's where happiness starts. This book changed my life, and I hope this video inspires you to take a hard look at how you're living. Are you chasing approval, or are you living for you? The courage to be disliked isn't about being defiant, it's about being true to yourself. It's about waking up every day knowing that your life is yours to shape, not someone else's to judge. If this video resonated with you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more content on living your best life. Let's keep this conversation going in the comments. What's one step you're going to take to live for yourself? I can't wait to hear from you.